This is a podcast where we take movies and twist the plot to see if we can make them better, and if not, witchier.
At the moment, we're talking about teen movies from the 90s.
On this episode, The Craft from 1996.
I'm Anders, and I know how to use candles. You light the wick, right?
I'm Emma, and if you ever just want to hang out and chant, just let me know.
Okay.
Anytime. You know what people don't do anymore in this modern technological era where we're all glued to our phones and social media and all that? Nobody just hangs out and chants anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's a real shame.
You know what else they don't do? They don't write letters to their grandma, you know?
No, it's a shame.
You sit down and you start and you're awkward and you're like, how do I say, do I say to? Do I say love? Do I say dear grandma? How are you?
To whom it may concern, I hope this letter finds you well. Yours sincerely. That's how I write all of my personal correspondence.
Yeah.
So, The Craft.
The Craft.
Shall I run it down?
Run it down. Cast that spell with a, I was trying to think of a Harry Potter spell. Havada. Don't say that one.
Not that one.
Loomis.
Any other than that one.
Loomis on this movie, if you will. Emma, please.
Like shed some light on it. That kind of works. Well done.
Thanks. Crucio.
Oh.
Is that the one with bad ones too?
It's the torture curse. So talking of which, let's talk about The Craft. So this is first of all, it's a horror film.
Ooh.
Apparently, I personally didn't find it that horrifying, but anyway,
No,
it's a horror film. It's a film about 4 young women in high school. Surprise, surprise. Our favorite place to be in terms of films that we like to talk about. It's
the thing that we do, the podcast that we're here to,
the podcast that we both
the
are
central,
here to do.
The nougat of our being, which is
the Edam in our joint sandwich. It's a film about these 4 girls at school who are witches, basically. They practice witchcraft, and essentially it kind of turns bad throughout the course of the film. So you have the main character. Her name is Sarah. She's played by Robin Tunney off of Empire Records.
It's Deb from Empire Records.
And as soon as I saw her, I was like, oh, I bet this film was made quite shortly after Empire Records, because she is wearing a wig.
100%.
For sure.
So wearing and she's wearing a wig, but she shaved her head that very year in that sync at Empire Records, and that was not made up. She shaved her head. That's a wig. She's wearing a wig.
So that's fun. She moves to, I don't actually know. I'm going to guess it's a place in Los Angeles.
Yeah, it's the West Coast.
Yeah, it's Los Angeles.
Although, I don't want to be like, I don't want to do that thing where you and I hark on about small details and then don't talk about the whole plot of the movie. So, don't let me go on about this. But, you know what they say about LA? About the weather in LA, right?
It's always nice.
It's always really nice, right? She arrives in Los Angeles in the middle of a rainstorm, and it rains a lot while she's in Los Angeles, and I didn't understand
not accurate.
that.
Yeah, interesting.
Like, right? It's a go. Welcome to LA. It's pouring with rain.
But doesn't she say something in the film about how she says something like, when I want it to rain, it just rains, because she's magic. So potentially we could infer that she has made that happen, surely.
I guess so. Moody teenagers always want it to rain.
Yeah. You could pass that off as a director's choice. Anywho. So she moves to Los Angeles. She goes to the school. She's the new kid at school. She meets 3 other girls, Bonnie, Nancy, and Rochelle. And all of them have a thing that they're struggling with and are also treated as outcasts by the rest of the school. They're also kind of like, they all have witchy vibes.
Yeah, they're all witchy. Yeah, they got that, they're witches. Yeah.
Nancy is dealing with the fact that her stepfather is very abusive and she is from a kind of low socioeconomic background. Yeah. Bonnie has scars all over her body from a incident where she got burned. Yeah. And Rochelle is being bullied and is experiencing racial hatred at school. Whoa. So they all have bad stuff going on, and but they kind of unite. They become friends over their shared interest in practicing witchcraft. They essentially then kind of start to perform like spells, kind of like pranks on people. Like they figure out how to change the color of their hair. Then it gets a bit more extreme, so that Sarah, she likes this guy who snubs her. She then puts a love spell on him. That kind of thing gets more and more extreme. The group starts to kind of like experience tensions. Nancy becomes very power hungry and starts to think she's possessed of their god, who they call Manon, and they all sort of turn against each other. Yeah. And there's this kind of climactic scene in Sarah's house where her and Nancy have a bit of a showdown, and there's lots of CGI and it all gets very creepy, and that's the like main horror part of it.
Right.
So those are the kind of key things that happen. And I think it's also worth saying at this point, just like a content warning for our listeners, and if you're going to watch this film, there is a lot of mentions of self-harm and suicide in the film, which we might touch on as well. I think I'd like to just talk about it a little bit because I think it is worth addressing why the portrayal of mental health in this film is not good. So just bear that in mind. And there's also some pretty severe racist language in the film as well. So just be aware of that. But yeah, other than that, it's a high school film about 4 witches.
Exactly. It's just like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, except for this time there's 4 of them. And then
that's it.
But it's other than that, it's the same. Yeah. But also it's darker and meaner and sadder. And one of them ends up in a mental institution at the end.
Yeah.
Because she thinks she's magic when she's not.
What's your experience of this film? What's your history with this film?
So I saw this movie I've seen this movie twice. I have seen this movie twice. Right?
Today and yesterday.
Yeah. Right now and then earlier today, and I watched it double header. No, I watched it for the podcast, and the last time I watched it was 1997. And I watched it with friends in high school who were super into Wicca. And I think, and I don't, hey y'all, friends of mine, past, present, and hopefully future, if you're looking, right? And also, I'm open to new friendships, right? I don't want to close the door on anything. New experiences,
it's not too late.
Right? It's not too late. It's never too late for now. People who are into the witch world, and I'm not talking Harry Potter anymore. I'm talking straight up Wicca witching, which, by the way, side note, this movie apparently had a Wicca witch consultant to make sure everything was super, witchy, right?
Consistent and respectful, which I thought was quite good actually.
I'm into that, right? Hey, listen, if you're gonna in a film show a group or a culture or a belief or a practice or a club, you should get one of the people who are in it to be like, fact checkers are important in that way. I knew people when I was in high school. I hung with a certain crowd. There was the crowd that spent more money on crystals and eye makeup than they did on textbooks. There's a few people who I hung out with who thought maybe I'm a witch, possibly, perhaps. And so I think my experience with this movie was watching it from my perspective. I'm like a person who's in high school. Let's watch a movie about people who are also high school, maybe. But my friends I was watching it with, I think they were watching it as a documentary of this is how you do witch stuff. The only other thing I'll say is after we watched this movie, I have a very vivid memory of genuinely lighting candles and trying to do light as a feather, stiff as a board with friends. Yeah. And that was not the first time and not the only time when I went to a cool, fun high school party where we lit candles and tried to levitate our friends with magic. I don't I was just trying to fit in. You know what I mean?
Did you ever do a Ouija board?
So much.
Yeah.
A couple times, and I'm still scared about it now.
I once got in one of the few times in my life where I've got in trouble for something. Was because we went to choir tour and as a trip, and we did a Ouija board, and we got in trouble for it.
Why would you bring a Ouija board on choir trip? You know,
I don't know. It was a pretty wild time.
Yeah, you're out there.
Wild. Yeah, pretty wild.
Singing your hymns and praying, and also doing the Ouija. So to answer your question, I've seen this movie twice, but from two different perspectives. One where I was trying to fit in, and one where I was like, this movie's from the 90s and it's about magic. That's fun. Yeah. What's going on here? Isn't that Deb from Empire Records, and then also what's her name from Dodgeball? Ooh, I felt bad she lost all of her hair, but not so bad because she was racist. Those are my 2 cents anyway. Back to you in the studio.
Yeah, I definitely, I don't know, I'm really interested in Wicca. I'm really interested in witchcraft stuff. I think it's very interesting. This movie, however,
well, yeah. What did you think? What's your? Can we unpack this movie from a cinematic, perspective? Right?
Yes.
Right. Let's break it. Let's break it down.
Let's break it down.
All right.
So just some top line observations. I think that the acting was very good. I thought the characters that were created by the actors, particularly Fairuza Balk, who played Nancy,
so good. So good.
If anything, the acting was almost so good it kind of elevated the entire film, which is unusual but can happen. I thought that Robin Tunney as Sarah was potentially a little bit miscast which is interesting because apparently she was meant to play Bonnie, one of the other girls, which I think would have worked. I think Neve Campbell, I think they should have switched. Yeah. Personally, but anyway.
Interesting. Hot take.
So I thought, so that was a strength of the film. I think the script was I thought it was pretty messy. Basically, I thought the film was quite hard to follow, and it's interesting because this film has a big cult following, similar to Jawbreaker. We'll get it. It's similar to Jawbreaker, and I think there's a lot of parallels with Jawbreaker actually. Because both of the films have very iconic moments. They have moments which are memorable and strong. The moment where you've got the 3 girls, they're all kind of levitating in the house. That's a great scene. Yeah. And it's very visually powerful. Same as Jawbreaker. Jawbreaker, you've got the moment where they're all walking down the hallway. That's so famous. Yeah. But both of those films have this strange quality to the script where you kind of have... It feels like the film has a little difficulty transitioning from moment to moment somehow. Yeah. So you can quite easily look away for a few minutes and then go back to it and go, oh, how do we get here? If you see what I mean. Yeah. I think that the story and the characters and the information that you're given about them wasn't compelling enough, and I left the film feeling quite disappointed. Basically, I think that's my main observation about this film was I was quite disappointed because I think I've heard good things about it. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's a cool concept. I think that the themes it talks about are really cool, and it just didn't pull it off. I thought it just feels somehow not there.
Like something was missing?
Yeah, or just that. So things like Sarah turns up at the start of the film.
Right.
And we know that she's come from San Francisco. We know that she's going to this new school. And we know that she's afraid of snakes. Other than that, we don't really know very much about her.
Right.
And we're not really given anything.
Exactly. And we should know more about her. Like, I don't know, your mom was a witch?
Yeah.
That would be good to know.
And so what that does, I suppose, to you as a viewer is it means that you're going into the film not understanding who it is that you're seeing the film from. And I think I've kind of mentioned this before in terms of these films from the 90s often rely on your knowledge of the environment, of the school environment, or your assumptions about it. So I think it's expecting me to go, you get this girl. She's a slightly weird girl who is from another school. You know who that is.
Right.
You know what I mean? In the same way they're going, yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr. is the jock. Oh, okay. So you're kind of being expected to look at the template from your own world and bring that into the film with you. But for me, I don't really have that template. I'm just going, who is this girl? And then there's this other interesting thing. So when you're writing a script, you have to really consider your point of view. So who's the person who's seeing this happen in the film?
Sure.
And how is the audience doing that? So something as straightforward as like, okay, Sarah's here and she's in the scene, and she, if she walks away and the conversation carries on without her, we've lost her point of view. Basically, she's not there anymore.
Right.
And that brings up challenges because it means, well, whatever information I hear now, Sarah doesn't hear. So I now know that she doesn't know that, which means that I'm kind of separated from, I'm distanced from her a little bit.
Yeah.
And what they did was they kind of lost the point of view a lot because of having these 4 girls. It felt a little bit confusing as to who I'm supposed to connect with and whose side I'm supposed to be on.
Yeah.
There's a moment where Bonnie is watching Sarah levitate her pencil. You remember that part?
Oh,
that she's sitting in the classroom. She's playing with a pencil. You see that scene from Bonnie's perspective, and you haven't been given any real information about Sarah as to understand why she's doing that and how she can do it.
Totally.
So that breaks the point of view and it distances you from Sarah. And if that happens enough, you end up at the climax of the film going, I don't really know who you are and I don't know who I'm supposed to be supporting.
Yeah.
And it just stops you connecting with it.
Totally. Here's what they should have done. This isn't the twist, right? We'll do something more fun than this.
It's a mini twist.
It's a twistette, right? It's like it's like this is, if a twist is a full-size candy bar, this is at best a trick-or-treat sampler.
Fun size.
It's a fun size, right? It's like you'd get a trick-or-treat, but it's a one bite. It's what my friend Dan would call a gobbler, right? You just eat it in one gulp, right?
Wow, okay.
Okay. So you want to tell me a story about a girl who's magic, and she moves from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and she's nervous and she's shy, and also her mom's died. Apparently, we find that out from a picture on the wall.
Classic.
Well, my mom's dead. Here's a picture of her. Right? Look how happy she was in her summer dress. But you want to find that out. We find out she's a bit maybe magic because the pencil. It should start with her going, I'm nervous about moving to Los Angeles because my mom died, and also I think I might be magic, perhaps. Follow me from the beginning. Tell me about your fears. She walked into this new high school like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, ready to go. Totally confident, good to go. Oh, hi, I'm new. Hi, I'm also magic. Big deal. But also...
And later we get explanations of like, sometimes I make it rain when I want it to rain. And it's like, cool. It would have been nice to see that maybe at the start of the movie.
Lead with the rain. You can make rain happen. Nobody cares what, the subtle little pencil spin you did in science, or whether or not Skeet Ulrich thinks you're cute. Tell me about the forecasting weather you can control from your brain.
Yeah. You really need to spell it out. Jumping ahead to the twist. Spell it. Get it.
Because of magic.
Yeah. Maybe I should save this to the twist, but it's basically just like,
don't save it.
You have... Oh, okay.
Say it now. Do it now. Because inevitably the twist is going to be about time travel or she's a caveman. Okay, so say it now, or forever hold your good idea for the bad part. You know what I mean?
You've got to really spell things out for people. You've got to make it really apparent. You should have, I don't know, the opening 5 minutes of the film is intercut scenes of all 4 girls. Yeah. All trying to do magic, and there's different outcomes, or they have different intentions, and in those moments you can say, this is this person's experience with magic, you know, this is their backstory, this is what they're like, this is how they respond to it, and then you bring them all together. It's as simple as that. What they did was spend too much time trying to build atmosphere. They were trying to, like, it's very moody, there's lots of rain, Sarah's very mysterious, and, you know, they've all got cool outfits on, which obviously I'm not going to pretend that I didn't love, because
you
I
loved
it.
Love the it was like the 90s. Literally.
So good. But yeah, you don't feel connected to them. And then you kind of get further into the film, and the plot starts to get very muddy, and you have you've got lots of extra things in there that you don't really need, I suppose. Such as the plot line with Chris Hooker. So, well, first of all, it kind of bothered me because it was pretty problematic in the sense that she goes on a date with him. Yeah. He then the next day goes and tells the whole school that they had sex and it was terrible for him, and it's a lie because they didn't. And then she casts a spell on him to fall in love with her, and then he pursues her a lot, and then later on Nancy pretends to be Sarah, and then she starts making out with him, and it's very problematic from a consent issue, and I didn't like how it was portrayed, because
it was so bad.
It was kind of portrayed as fun, and it was just very icky. That whole thing, I just felt like it was really unnecessary. Like, not only was it problematic, it was also unnecessary in the sense that you could literally just, like, if you want to show them casting spells on people, just like, oh, look, I turned her hair green in the class and everybody laughed, and that's it. You don't need to have this, like, long running thought out thing, which is like, oh, now I've got this person who's in love with me, and it's just.
Hey, listen, and we learned from Sabrina that you're not allowed to make boys fall in love with you with magic.
Well, now we know why.
Now we know why. Because the reason you can't make a boy fall in love with you with magic is because if you do, he might murder you.
To bring in my 2021.
What year is this? Where am I?
What's
happening?
There's a few things that felt like they were being glamorized, and they shouldn't have been. And one of them was essentially forcing yourself onto someone without their consent.
Yes.
And the other thing, like I mentioned at the start, was the depiction of self-harm was really, really bad. It was very glamorized. You know, at one point, Nancy she references Sarah's scars that are from self-harm, and she says something like, "That's very punk rock." Yeah. And the film doesn't show you that as bad. It shows you it as cool and fun. There's also loads of references to suicide. There's, you know, the implication that Nancy's trying to get Sarah to die by her own hand, and then there is this ending in which Nancy is put into, like you said, a mental institution, and all of that stuff is so bad, because I think if you're not an active viewer, if you're just watching a film and you're not really thinking about it and you just want to get lost in the world and you just want to enjoy it, stuff like that can just creep in there, and it can get into your head. And, you know, there is a real issue, particularly online at the moment, with things like glamorizing self-harm and that being a big influence on young people. You have to be very responsible in terms of how you depict this stuff. You have to be really responsible. Really bothers me when people aren't, and it's pretty upsetting, actually. Yeah. And I think, like, when you watch something like this as well, I think there must have been loads of people who watched this and didn't necessarily instantly go, hey, that's really bad, we shouldn't be doing that. And the other thing was the depiction of racism. I thought was kind of shown as if it was just casual bullying, and they even refer to it as just bullying. And, like, I think I was reading a review and they said, oh, she gets teased, and I'm like, that's not teasing. That's a hate crime.
That's not teasing. You know, Emma, not to be, you know, the old man in the room, but the 90s were nuts.
It was a different time.
They were a different time, not a better time. They were a nuts time.
Yeah.
Right? That's not bullying. That's bad. That's awful. And losing your hair, it's not good enough. Although she did lose her hair and then apologized. Right? Is that what happened? I feel like she lost her hair and went, "Sorry, I'm racist."
There was this kind of scene in which it was framed as the character who had experienced the abuse. Then, so what she does is she casts a spell on the girl who's been racist towards her and causes her to lose all her hair. And then there's a scene where she looks down, she sees her pulling her hair out, and I think you're supposed to feel like, oh, she feels bad for her.
Right.
Which kind of makes sense, but within the story, that character hasn't been condemned by the film.
Nope.
Essentially.
Nope.
They've just kind of gone, oh, she did a bit of a bad thing, and then it was, then she retaliated, and oh, girls, what are they like, and it's like, no.
What are they like?
It's really bad, and it's, I hate to sit here and be sort of buzzkill and like really go on about all this stuff when this is a film which has loads of fun things in it, and it is very much intended to be fun.
Yep.
But I don't want to let these people get away with their stuff. I don't want to.
So here's what I think. Right? Here's a like off the cuff. Hot take, all right? It's so hot, I can't hold it, okay? It's a hot potato, right? This is a hot potato hot take. I'm going to call it a hot potato take. Patent pending, right? I think movies across time, but potentially at a concentration level in the 90s, used the thing about you might be a witch or wizard in that thing where it's like you're special, the chosen one, the 7 stories, as a way of depicting, or rather like channeling this thing where it's like you're young, nobody understands you, and maybe you're magic, but I think they use it as a way to both glorify but also escape from real issues, right? And let me
you're right.
Let me break this down, right? So you got 4 witches, or rather, sorry, you have 4 women, one of whom is, I guess, a witch, and the other 3 have magical tendencies, but only are fully magic when the 4 are together, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking about it, right? And so like you got Sarah, right? And Sarah is legit the witch, okay? In that her mom was a witch. She comes and joins this group, and then they can all do magic, and that's cool and everything. But for Sarah, she didn't have any life problems other than she has a stepmom, and she just moved to a different city. Her life is probably fine. But the other 3 had real problems, right? Nancy, right? She's got like an abusive stepfather. Bonnie, scars. Rochelle, racism. Sarah shows up and she's like, I'm also magic, but legit. And then I can, we can all together do our things. And I guess it's fun because they all got to escape and they're all the chosen ones and they got to like revel in their magichood. But if you really drill down, 3 out of 4 of those women had real problems. And they just sort of went, look, I can change my hair from brown to blonde, right? And I feel like in this movie, they used the whole thing about I'm the chosen one to be a fun way of distracting themselves and maybe the audience or maybe the world from the real problems that were happening to them, which are problems that, happen in the world. And I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking about the main character and I'm like, hey, Sarah, what was your deal? Oh, you
don't like snakes.
You didn't like snakes? And people were sometimes mean to you, I guess.
Yeah. Mom's dead, but grief isn't a person.
But it was the 90s, so it's like, you can talk about how you're a bit sad and nobody would address the fact that, mental health is something we should all be a little bit more aware of and we should all talk about. But they didn't because it was the 90s. People were racist and they didn't talk about their feelings in the 90s. That's my memory anyway.
I think we talked about when we did the film. What was the one with the guy on the radio? I can't remember the name of it. Wow. The guy.
You mean Pump Up the Volume? Christian Slater, Pump Up the Volume.
Yeah. When we talked about Pump Up the Volume, I said that I thought there was elements of a masculine fantasy. I think what you're of a character kind of having a secret identity. I think maybe we can assign this as a bit more of a feminine fantasy of having very, strong innate powers that you can then torture your victims with. And by that, I just want to clarify, by that I specifically mean as a product of patriarchy, not something that's innate. I think.
No, you're so right though. If you think about their struggles, right? So Nancy, she had an abusive stepfather, right? He was a bad dude. Okay? And her magic made him exit the conversation because of dying, right? That's bad, but he was a bad guy. And Bonnie, bless her, man, we don't know how she got burned, but she got burned, and that was sad, and it was burned, and it was sad. And she felt, and people were bad, and people were mean to her. Now the scars are gone. And Rochelle, people were straight up racist to her. So she was able to, the magic made the bad stuff go away for a second, although there was a thing about it might come back and triple, but it didn't, because at the end they were all fine. They just didn't have magic. But I don't know. Yeah, and maybe you're right. Maybe it's a lady. Maybe it's a female. I mean, I don't know. Do you?
Well, I think there is an element to which, and I would say, and I don't think this is a good thing, just to be clear, but quite a lot of the struggles and spells and stuff revolved around appearance. Like Bonnie is
money or scars or blonde hair.
Yeah, and people's hair falling out, and it's very appearance focused. Yeah. Also, again, not to be that person, Killjoy, but here I am. But I know that there is a lot of work being done by charities and people who represent people with disabilities to stop using things like scars in horror films, because people have to live with them, and seeing something which is your reality represented in a film as a horrifying thing, it can be really bad. I think it's just worth saying that. But yeah, it's revolved around a lot around appearance, so I think that does give it that potentially feminine portrayal as well, unfortunately.
So here's a question. What is your favorite cinematic portrayal of witches/wizards, and what's your least favorite and why?
My favorite portrayal of witches is in the film Kiki's Delivery Service.
Me too. Well, it's up there, dude. I love that movie so much. She's a young witch, and she's got to leave because she's got a radio, and she has to find her own town. And Phil Hartman's in it.
Yeah. So this film came out in 1989, and it's
so good.
Such a forward-thinking film in terms of its portrayal of young women, which I love. I watched it. I think I was the same age as Kiki when I watched it as well. Awesome. I think she's 13. I think I was 13 or 12, something like. I watched it when I was quite young. It's such a fantastic film because it's about it's about a real empowerment. It's about a character going off into the world and learning stuff and helping people and trying to do their best, and there's a really cute cat in it, and I absolutely love it. Probably one of my least favorite portrayals of witches. Yeah. It's not really a non-favorite portrayal, but one that I find genuinely quite scary is The Witches, Roald Dahl's The Witches.
So scary. Super scary.
So scary.
Super scary, yeah.
And it's hilarious because that's a children's film. It's far more scary than this film. What's interesting about that one is that film is quite old, actually. I don't know when the original one came out. I know there was a new 90s one as well. Yeah. The special effects are really good still, I would say. They still hold up. I mean, at least they did the last time I watched it, which, to be fair, probably was a little while ago. Yeah. This film, The Craft, they used CGI that was very new, current for the time. Yeah. And I just think it's not a good idea. Hey, filmmakers, don't use loads of really obvious CGI because it will age really quickly.
Dude, use practical effects, right? I mean, take a leaf out of the new, but not the new, but the new Star Wars movies. And it's like, don't use CGI, right? George Lucas, just put a dude in a rubber mask.
Just use it sparingly and use it to enhance, not to create entirely. Right. I would say, unless you're I mean, some of the stuff they make now is incredible and super high end, but at this point, there's a bit like the fingers on her hands turn into snakes, and it just looks kind of funny.
It's bad. Yeah.
Also, sorry. Also, a lot of the horror in the climactic scenes relied on snakes, and I'm like, I think snakes are cool. I like snakes.
Snakes are fine. I'm not Indiana Jones. Right? I'm not scared of them.
And so there's this whole thing where there's snakes everywhere, and I'm like, this is fine. And then there's some mice, and I'm like, cute. You know?
The snakes are going to eat the mice, and then I'll hold the snake. What's the problem with that, magic people? Back off.
What about you? Do you have any other witch portrayals that you like?
Oh, dude. So it actually perfectly links with this movie because I'm a big fan of The Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know, the classic one with Elphaba and the good witch Glenda and all that. I'm into that, right? But one of my favorite movies from when I was a kid, and my favorite witch movie, I think, is the movie from the early 90s called The Return to Oz. Have you ever seen Return to Oz? Yeah?
Yeah.
And do you know who's in that movie?
Who's in it? Yeah.
It's flippin' Fairuza Balk.
Yeah. She's got such a distinctive face.
Right?
I totally picked that up straight away. Yeah.
Side note, I love her so much. And I really liked her in this movie. I liked her in
she's
Return
great.
to Oz. I liked her in Almost Famous, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I love her so much. And I love her in Return to Oz. And if you haven't seen Return to Oz, here's what I would recommend, all right? First and foremost, pick a Saturday and just clear your schedule, okay? Close the blinds. That's step 2. Step 3, how much popcorn do you think you need? More than you're thinking. And I'm
Can
talking.
I also suggest like a hot chocolate as well?
Yes, of course. And here's what you're going to do. It's a movie marathon. It's 3 movies. You're going to start with The Wizard of Oz. Ooh, Dorothy. Ooh, black and white. Then it's color. Love it, right? Second movie, Return to Oz. And then, cool down, you watch The Magical Wizard of Oz. You got James Franco. He's the wizard, right? Of Oz. What I'm saying is it's 3 Wizard of Oz movies. You should watch them all. And then when you're done, open the curtains wide, let the sun shine in, take a deep breath and realize you are alive. And then take another breath and realize that was a really good Saturday. Am I right, everybody? I'm right. Oh, anyway, I gotta go. I'll see you later.
Bye. Oh, he's actually going. Hey, come back. We need to record a podcast. R is for review. E is for review. V is for view. I is for you. You get where I'm going with this. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.
Hello, I'm back.
Oh, cool. Hi. Do you want to twist this movie?
Let's twist it like it's a Sunday.
What?
Meaning like, you know that thing where if you wake up on a Sunday and you're like, what should we do today? And then your partner's like, I don't know. And then you go, maybe we should twist it like it's a Sunday. Meaning the movie that we just watched.
Yeah. Sure.
Is that a universal experience that everybody has? Right. So, hot take. Here we got a movie from the 90s. It's about witches. The POV is bad. And also, what was the point of it? And also bad CGI. So what's the big thing we want to change? Right? That's the question.
Oh, I think this could be one of the ones where we make some small changes and we actually make it better, to be honest with you.
All right.
You know,
yeah, cool.
I know there's less fun, wild time travel and aliens.
Let's make it incrementally better, right? But and you can make zingy fun jokes while we do it, right?
Okay. Wow. All right. Now I feel under pressure, but it'll be fine.
No pressure. It's cool. It's so cool, right? You know, it's so cool.
So I kind of suggested one of them already, which is that I think we should have an opening montage of all 4 girls in their houses. Just give us some time to learn who they are and what their deal is. Then we see, what's her name again? The main one, Sarah.
We see
Sarah going to school. Now you know what I want to see the first time that a teenager from the 90s goes to the new school. What do I want to see?
You want to see the lunchroom. You want to know
the tour.
The tour of the cafeteria. Who sits where? Yes.
Yes.
It was either that. It was either that, or there's that thing when somebody's parent has died. You want to see them. Not when she dies, but that like.
I think we should resurrect them. Well, okay. I have two ideas. Let's bring her. Yeah.
Okay.
Necromancy. No. I think either she should not be dead, because I think the problem with her being dead is that it means that Sarah doesn't really have anyone in her life. Like we never see her. Is it her stepmom and her father? They barely talk to her. If she had her parents there and they were both fine, right, she could have people to talk to, because we only learn about characters by hearing them talk to other people.
That's how it works.
You know, why not have them there? The other thing I was going to suggest was that the secret lady who is the witch in the shop could secretly be her mum.
That's a great idea. Let's do that, right?
Yeah.
Her mom left. Well, I don't know why she left. She's just gone. And her dad is,
when she was a baby, so she doesn't know what she looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And her dad is, that's a good way to tie that up. And I'd say her dad is a bit oblivious to it all.
She was already practicing witchcraft, and her father made fun of her for it or something. I think it would be good if she intentionally left, because then when Sarah finds her, she can be like, I understand what it's like. It's difficult. Look, it's so difficult. I walked away from my family because of how what's the word? Outcast did a lot, they shunned me, and so I left. But if I'd known that you were magic, maybe I would have stayed, and I would have taken you with me, but I didn't want to put you in danger. Like, if it's a choice, I think that is stronger, because then it's like she can be like, why did you leave me, Mom? Why didn't you stay? And she's like, because I thought I was a danger to you. And she's like, well, you're not, because I'm a witch too. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's reunite. And then they're stronger together because there's two of them.
I love it.
As well. So then when the showdown comes, two is better than one.
Here's what I'm thinking. This is a movie about high school witches, but it is a high school movie. But there's an event that they didn't go to that I'm very disappointed about. Prom. There's no prom in this movie, right?
Oh my god, can you imagine the outfits? Like the witch.
I know.
Okay, sorry. I know that you had a thing, but I want to barge in there and go first, which is that I want to say.
This is my thing.
How about this?
Yes.
They somehow make it so that it's a witch-themed prom, and then they turn up and it's like they're
fine
in their witch outfits, and it's amazing.
Maybe there's a vote to see what's the theme of the prom, right? And they're witchy, and they were doing fun witchy things, so they somehow rig the vote with 1,000 votes that are it's witch themed, and then everyone shows up and they're all like, ooh, it's witch themed, look at my cauldron, look at my broom, or whatever. But they're really witches, and they do go to the witch prom. But as we know from this movie, they're mostly wrapped up in getting even with their nemesis and or trying to make out with a boy.
Women stuff. We already have a antagonist, Laura, I think she's called, the one who is racist. Let's maybe make her not be racist, and let's make her, she's like the queen bee, she's popular, and she wants to, I don't know, I feel like it's a thing where you could lobby for your theme to be the theme that's chosen, and you could have opposing teams. So she's like,
totally,
I really want it to be fairies, also like fairy princesses,
pink and flowery fairy,
and then the other team are like, the others are like, no, it's gonna be witch, it's gonna be real witch stuff. And then
witches,
this is what this is, and then they maybe as part of their conflict, because we can leave all the other conflict stuff in there as well, but part of it is that they also are like, oh, we'll cheat and rig it so that we put 1,000 votes in and we get, but then they're like, do you know what? No, let's not, and let's just genuinely see. Let's not cheat, and then they win anyway. Because that's always fun when people they could cheat, but then they don't, and then they decide not to. And then it's like, oh, actually, this whole time we always thought we were outsiders and losers and stuff, but actually everyone thinks we're really cool without us even trying.
Yeah, and also maybe they do that thing where they put their hands over their body, their face, and they look like somebody else, right? And maybe they mask and they try to be all the cool, popular girls. But then when they call the this this year's prom queen isn't one queen, it's 4 prom queens. And they're reading the names, and it's like, it's Sarah and Nancy and Bonnie and Rochelle, but they're all disguised as
and then they're not there, and they're like, oh, they're not
girls.
here. Yeah.
They're not there. And then they have to be like, they have to distract everybody with some sort of an explosion, and then they do the thing, and they're like, it's actually us. Yeah. We're all here. And then they're accepted by the school, and so therefore they are no longer bullied or have problems, and then their need for magic isn't there anymore. And so maybe at the end there's this thing where they all go up to a dumpster and they all throw their magic stuff in the dumpster, and they're like, turns out, girls, we didn't need magic to be popular. What we needed was to be honest with ourselves and with our classmates. Is that a good ending? A bunch of kids standing around a dumpster throwing away their magic accoutrement?
I just remember that the film's a horror, though.
Right, and then right at the end, when you think everything's fine, Sarah's mom like floats in on a magic broom, and there's a bunch of venomous snakes chasing her, and she goes, we got to get out of here because of all the snakes, and not to mention the dragons. And then the day turns to night, and everything starts bleeding, and it's hell on earth.
Have you ever considered a career in screenwriting for horror? Because that's really something.
Yep. It's what I aspire to.
I think realistically that's all good. We could have that, and then I think
it's all good.
Because I think I've expressed this opinion before when we did the last time we did a horror film, which was I know what you did last summer.
Which one was that?
I expressed the opinion that
with like hook hand,
you can kind of make anything scary if you frame it correctly. I think
totally.
In reality, the thing you needed to do to fix this film was to just change the kind of beats of the framing and get a cinematographer that knows how to make things look genuinely scary, because it wasn't
totally
working.
Oh boy. I would love to know, on a scale of 1 to 5, goblets containing magic juice and a little bit of blood, what would you rate this movie, The Crown?
I think probably a 1.5. I think because it's 1.5. It has some really iconic moments, and I always feel so bad because I know it has a cult following, and I know people really love it. And if you're listening to this and you love it, I will just say what I always say, which is that's fine. And you do your thing, and my opinion has no real meaning against yours if you love it. But like, I just didn't. I think after I watched the film, I sat there and I felt really disappointed, and that's what I'm gonna kind of honor. So 1.5. Yeah. I wanted it to be better. I was excited. I was really excited for it.
I'm so with you, right? I give it a 1.5 as well. I thought it was going to be really good. I feel like it held up in a way, okay, which was good, but it's like, dude, this movie could have been better. Why wasn't it better? Yeah. The cast was awesome.
The soundtrack was good. You didn't say that, surprisingly.
It was... I forgot there's so much magic and snakes. I forgot about how good the music was. This movie could have been excellent, and that's what's so angering about it. Some movies from the 90s never could have been good. They were bad. I'm talking to you, Encino Man, and they'll always be bad. This movie could have been good, but it sucked, kind of. Sorry, everybody. But what we need to do is we need to chant. Okay, so I want you to really concentrate.
Uh-huh.
And the chant goes, as you know, I'll start and you start at the same time.
Okay, right, I'm ready.
Light as a feather, stiff as a board.
It's been 1 week since you looked at me.
Stiff as a board.
Cocked your head to the side and said I'm angry.
Stiff as a board.
5 days since you laughed at me, saying, get that together, come back and see me. Sorry. I think I misunderstood what was happening there. Sorry.
I think you understood exactly what was happening. Oh my goodness. Thank you for listening to this episode of Plot Twisters.
Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
And we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.